Stefan Korshak is the Kyiv Post senior defense correspondent. He's worked as a correspondent and photographer since the 1990s, reported from multiple war zones, and publishes commentary on Medium and other platforms. Stefan is highly regarded in the activist community, especially for the quality of his insights, the frequency of his work, and the impeccable sources of information which give accuracy. We should also mention, as you can see in the background, there is a book, especially those who are buffs of, I would say, military history, or who want to know a lot more and go into depth about various stages of the Ukraine war. There you can see the siege of Mariupol. We are going to put a link to that in the description of the video. I strongly recommend you check that out. Stefan, I'm delighted to welcome you to the channel.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I've long, I say, consumed your material, found it incredibly useful and insightful. Could you give the audience a little bit of a background of the length and depth of your involvement in the Ukraine story?
It's pretty substantial. I've been a journalist in this region for now more than 25 years. There's been a couple of breaks, but in general, most of the time I've been based in Ukraine and just, seen a lot, reported on a lot. From 2015 to 2019, I worked for the OSCE as a field monitor for the international monitoring mission. And so I was one of the guys out monitoring the ceasefire that really wasn't a ceasefire. I was in the Mariupol sector, and we got to go to the ground there and, the players there very, very well. And that was for 5 years. Besides that, I worked in Afghanistan for a little while. I've covered the Russo-Georgian War, the Chechnya War, the Second Chechnya War. So, although I'm a general reporter, I'll write on anything. My sort of general direction for a long, long time has been security and conflict in this region.
And let's dive straight in, because, of course, with after 4 years of pretty much ignoring this, suddenly what's happened in the Middle East has propelled drone warfare to the top of some people's agenda. Let's start with, I think, the claim you've made here that this is a once-in-a-century revolution, comparable to the introduction of highly industrialized warfare in the First World War, and the origins of maneuver warfare there, which was the tank, machine gun, etc. Could you comment a little bit on just how important the not just drones as a piece of kit, but as an entire ecosystem is to warfare?
That's a fascinating question for me, and something that's just been, I feel sometimes bad because the development of how warfare is prosecuted and how armies go about their business is just something that I've studied for a long, long time. And to see it happening right now in front of me is, well, it's an opportunity, but if I had the choice, I sure wouldn't have wanted to be able to witness it up first class at first hand. Um, a couple of qualifiers, although I certainly wrote that and I certainly stand by it. I don't want to say that, I don't want to put myself into the category of one of those people who says that drones have changed everything. All other weapon systems are obsolete. Nothing that we know about war from before applies now. It's all changed. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that from looking at it on the ground and talking to the soldiers and reading the materials and seeing how the warfare is developed, um, we are looking at a change in warfare comparable to the introduction of the machine gun in World War I, in my view, comparable to the massed introduction of rifled muskets in we'll call it the middle of the 19th century. And it's changed the way that battles are fought in huge ways that people are still grappling with. And because drones have made the battle, the fighting so much wider. It's the fighting is not concentrated on where people can just shoot one another, looking at one another. It's now it's a zone where there's a potential of being hit, and that changes not just how the battle is fought and how the individual soldiers are, for instance, trained or go about their business. It's how the civil authorities try and provide services to people. It's how the entire country tries to generate a war effort, because the way that the war is being fought is no longer just battles at a relatively close range. And it's developing right now, and it's very safe to say that the Ukrainians are ahead of everybody in terms of applying drones, on the battlefield or in war. But they aren't finished. They are still experimenting. The Russians are really not that far behind. And when we look at the way that drones are sort of appearing and being recognized and being used in other conflicts, yeah, so most recently the U.S.-Iran war, from the perspective of here, it looks like, oh, these guys, they are years behind the leading edge of experience here. And they have just a huge amount to learn. In the back of one's mind there, you can find, the Ukrainians going, well, and the Russians too going, well, why weren't they paying attention? 4 years of war here. That's a lot of war to miss. But, that's just the nature of life and how countries are. Until it's your own personal experience, you don't pay that much attention.
It's the don't look
So,
up scenario, isn't it?
yeah, yeah,
As in
yeah,
the
yeah.
film,
So
yeah.
not made here, that kind of thing. So, it's very interesting to look at the war going on around the Persian Gulf right now, and people are smart and they have a big incentive to figure out ways both to hurt the enemy and to survive themselves. So I have no doubt that probably the Iranians, because they are more pressed to find new ways of going about fighting, that they will come up with ways that probably the Ukrainians haven't come up with. That's just the nature of the development.
This is it. It's almost like if you give sort of viruses or whatever enough food, you can accelerate that evolutionary cycle in certain ways. We'll come back to that, but I think the idea of drones as an ecosystem, perhaps, even though drones are now coming onto people's headlines, they're perhaps not understanding the nature of the ecosystem that's produced it and is required to sustain that level of iteration. We'll kind of come back to that one. But the something you brought up here, I think, is absolutely fascinating, and that is that we think of Russia as being pretty sluggish. We think of meat wave assaults. But as an article I was reading last night, they're coming up to having somewhere in the region of 100,000 drone trained troops. And many of them are elite units. This is terrifying because, as you say, maybe they haven't had the same sort of evolutionary diversity as Ukraine. Ukraine's chosen the horizontal path to create a drone ecosystem, to iterate many different variations and test them. Russia seems to, well, steal ideas, innovate a few ideas, and then mass scale those few. So you've got a very vertical approach there. But as you say, Russia is not far behind and is constantly accelerating. How's the West going to catch this up? Because if we're only really starting to understand some of the basics or foundations, we're trying to hit an accelerating target and yet
Hmm.
still moving at a fairly sluggish pace. So
Well,
how do you,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's really, there are two possibilities. And being an American, I'll pick on the Americans and avoid, the European neighbors who are wonderful people. But if you look at the American military and how it is, the ground forces and how they are thinking about drones and trying experimenting with drones and trying to figure out ways to take their existing doctrine and incorporate drones into it. It's obvious that the Marines, who are a more professional organization, a smaller organization, an organization more directly dedicated to war fighting and destroying the enemy, are ahead. They are experimenting more. They have more drones being used in smaller units, and they are nowhere close to what I would say the Russians or the Russians or the Ukrainians are at. But you can clearly see that because that organization, just as an institution, is more open to in some ways at least, experimentation, creativity, innovation, that they're further along the path. So if you have institutions, military institutions anywhere, and now we can expand it to the British military, who knows, the Polish military, you could have institutions, and sometimes it's just a small group of officers and NCOs who just become drone enthusiasts, and they develop enough critical mass within the institution to force the institution to accept, okay, these are useful tools, these are capable weapons. They not only could, but they should be incorporated into our doctrine, because otherwise we're going to get beaten by somebody who has. And then you look at the United States Army approach, and I am a veteran of the United States Army, so I feel like I have a little bit of right to pick on them. And it's very much, we're going to do the minimum in order to tick the box. And clear, I mean, there are certainly, I've talked to them, guys within the U.S. Army who can see what's going on. They know where the development is going. They understand the handwriting on the wall, but they're up against a great big institution where there are thousands of careers set and in, involved in doing things the old way, and which question innovation, question clever ideas from the lower ranks. And an organization like that very rarely reforms unless, if we're talking in the military context, it's put into battle and suffers a lot of losses. So, and that's your option number two. So option number one is bright people within the organization push the reform, push the change. And the second option, this is not picking on the British, but an excellent example. Why do the British historically have excellent riflemen and excellent infantry? Because the British Army tried to have formations of infantry who were not excellent, sent them to a series of wars in the latter half of the 19th century, ending with the Boer War. And the British Army learned that no, we need much better infantrymen with much better marksmanship skills, much more capable of operating independently. And that change was forced not because smart people in Sandhurst and Whitehall said, this is what we should do. It was because it was on the battlefield. They got the lesson handed to them in a very bloody way. How is that going to play out in the modern world? Well, we're seeing parts of it happen right now. The American military seems to have thought that it could shut down long-range Iranian drone strikes were using legacy air defense weaponry. Anybody in Ukraine, I'm talking grandmothers, would have told you that that's like absurd. There's just the Shaheds. There's too many of them. They fly too low. You can't deal with them with Patriot missiles. It's just stupid.
Dare I say,
But
there's a little community of podcasters who've been saying this like almost
it,
every day for the last couple of years. It's insane.
it's just, yeah. I am among them, but it's like I am not a paid consultant to the U.S. military, so unfortunately, that particular message did not penetrate to the necessary people in the necessary way. Um, and which is fine. I mean, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of resources, and their people, although not expendable, are indeed people in the military. So, the United States military can take some losses and keep on doing its thing. But when will it reform? How will adapt? Will it adapt in the most intelligent way? That no, because there's no military adapts in the most intelligent way. I mean, you referred to you referred to the way the Russians run things vertically. Well, they aren't really capable of even accepting any other approach than sort of horizontal development. It's so antithetical to the way that they set up their organizations that the idea that a lower level organization might come up with a clever new way to do a drone, and then that by osmosis and transferring tech that other parallel units on that level would get it. That's just, I mean, it's technically possible, but it's just not the way the Russians set up in their institutions. And that is, that's the way that the Russians have organized things for centuries. Likewise, the Ukrainians, who And as a fan of the Ukrainians, I say this with a great deal of affection. Do not like, do not like regimentation. Do not like vertical discipline. Very much feels that I'm just as good as the next guy, and so they are naturally inclined to horizontal transfer of information and development. But to try and impose centrally controlled anything on them, there are efficiencies that come from that. I mean, there literally is in Ukraine right now. We have what is safe to say the world's best drone force on Earth, yet there's no standardized drones. It's not, I mean, the government is trying. I mean, the army keeps saying, you know, we really need to get our act together on this. And no, because there's thousands of developers. There are people building drones in their garages. There are engineers coming up with the next new antenna. And from a pure military point of view, that really needs to be centralized and controlled. And, you know, the Ukrainians understand at the top of the organization this should happen. It's not happening, and nobody really seems to expect it to happen.
At
And that's
least
just
some
because
mutually, some mutually, let's say, compatible components or interfaces at the very
I
least.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there are small steps being taken in that direction, but these things don't change overnight, and they don't change overnight even in wartime. So, I mean, it's to this day, uh, a significant portion of the drones, the FPV drones, I should say, which is a weapon of war, an extremely effective weapon of war, are crowdsourced. It's just, it's a drone crew getting up on, the brigade information feed saying, we have just about run out of FPV drones. You guys who are reading this, please, here's a card, here's a bank account number, here's, like our Visa card, donate, please. And people donate and they build their own drones, and that is like 21st century bleeding edge drone warfare. That is one of the ways that the Ukrainian military is getting itself weapons. I mean, the government has nothing to do with it. It's just, well, I mean, they're soldiers, but so
Mhm.
it won't be, no matter where you look. If you look at the West, to get back to your question, and how, how they are going to develop, how they're going to adapt, the only thing that I can say definitively, I think, is that it won't be clean, it won't be neat, and anybody standing on the side and looking at it will say, "No, it could be done a better way." There's some illogic, there's some non-logical activities going in. There's some institutions defending their interests, and that's just the nature of development, I guess.
And to continue that theme, you must speak to a lot of people who express, let's say, the Whitehall point of view, the procurement point of view. And I come across them occasionally at events, and well, I try to minimize communication because it's very frustrating. But let's say 2 years ago, there seemed to be this idea that, oh, Ukraine's doing some interesting stuff with the kit we've given them. Oh, they're doing some interesting stuff with kit they've developed. That's interesting. Well done. Pat on the head. Good little Ukrainians. And it seems that mood has largely shifted last year to, well, actually, they're doing some really clever stuff, but it doesn't relate to us, doesn't relate to the war that we're going to be fighting. That seems to me extraordinarily myopic, hubristic, and actually a lethal point of view. Do you think that's still prevalent, or is that changing based on what we're seeing in the Middle East?
Well, sure, it's changing, but it's a question of speed and degree and willingness of institutions to actually change military as opposed to willingness to recognize there's a problem, but then when they start grappling with it, oh, well, there's not enough resources, or, General so and so, we're not going to get anything changed until he moves on to another job, or, maybe well, if labor is out, then okay, maybe we have a chance. And there's all sorts of reasons why a perceived change, a perceived reform can be acknowledged fairly widely as necessary and a great idea, but, it doesn't get implemented. Couple of examples. The one of the leaders in the Ukrainian drone scene, if you will, is a former grain trader who had not a minute of military training before the war. This is like a businessman by the name of Robert Brovdy. He's an ethnic Hungarian. He's from West Ukraine. Extremely intelligent man. there is enough material there. You might even be able to write a book about how he is one of the few true military geniuses. But that's really kind of like of
You've
this
guessed
war.
what my plan for later in the year is,
Yeah, yeah,
actually.
but
Yes.
well, but to be honest, it's not just him. But what this guy did was he perceived early on that drones could be scaled up, and when scaled up, they could have battlefield effect well beyond what people were thinking at the time, which is, well, it's a toy that's kind of useful for observation. And he has fought for years against the Ukrainian military, which, has a really vested interest in efficient combat capacity because, the Russian army is invading, trying to get the institutions to agree that the Ukrainian military needs more drones. It needs more drone operators. It needs to systematize its acquisition of drones. It needs to create standing drone units. And this has been going on for quite a long time. And he's still working through how to make what he started as like the leader of like a very small drone group, one van, three guys, a couple of drones. And now it's a huge organization. It's like one out of every two drone sorties that takes place in Ukraine are like one of his units that do it. And he's still trying to get the Ukrainian military to fully acknowledge that these things are lethal, they're dangerous, and that the more that they are used, the less people need to like be risking themselves. And he was invited to a conference, I believe in Munich, I believe in 2025 or early 25 or late 24. And I mean, he's a really sharp guy, but he doesn't speak English apparently in public. And there was a round table and some NATO people, and they said, "So, Mr. Brovdi, and they observed some NATO training." And so it was battalion on battalion maneuvers, that kind of thing. And they said, "So you've observed us, what do you think?" And he said, "If I had four of my drone teams, I would wipe them all out. Just I would wipe them all out." Now, this is like a conference. NATO officers, they've invited one of the leading Ukrainian drone guys. This is in the first half of 2025. And he sat there and he laid it out and he said, you guys, you don't spread out your vehicles. You have no sense of how visible you are from the air. You leave tracks. Your soldiers think that, your Air Force will protect you. He said, we saw that with the Russians. We chopped them to bits. The way that you guys are going about it, I wouldn't. He used the term Pearl Harbor. He said, four of my drone teams put me within 20 kilometers of your NATO battalion, and I'll wipe it out in half a day. This is like not just anybody talking.
And
This is the
indeed, there was
guy.
an exercise
Wait, and you
yeah,
anticipate me,
yeah, yeah.
and then, okay, did suddenly NATO go, oh, okay, that's definitely what we need to do. We need to make some changes. Fast forward to the exercise that
Yeah, yeah.
clearly you know
In
about
May
as well.
last year, yeah, yeah.
Right, and and they took one of the subunits of this guy's great organization. They call it a regiment. Really, it's sort of something bigger than a company. It's probably like a weak battalion, really. But they're called Nemesis. That's just what they call themselves. And again, it's like him. It's some guys, some soldiers. They started operating drones, and they found resources and crew. And now they are one of the leading killing organizations in the entire war. Now, I mean, they selected the name for themselves way before they got the reputation. But these guys are just ruthlessly efficient, and the amount of destruction that they have, real life war destruction they have inflicted on the Russian army. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to speculate with any hard numbers, but I mean, regiments, battalions, just hundreds and hundreds of vehicles, maybe even thousands they probably destroyed over the years. Anyhow, as you know, they got invited as guests to a exercise. I believe it was in Estonia. Correct me if I'm
I think
wrong,
that may
right?
be correct. Yep, I think so. I
And
need to check on that.
so they they showed up with a few of their FPVs, and they
There's
just
10,
plopped
10
into.
operators, I think, was the
Right,
number,
yeah,
and
just so it
against two
wasn't
battalions. Yeah.
it wasn't the whole regiment. It was just, a couple of their sections. And so first you have the guy, and so as you clearly know yourself, um, over the course of the exercise, they chopped up the battalion, just as their boss had suggested 6 months ago would happen.
Well, he said
And
half
so,
a day. He said half a
yeah,
day. And the press release indeed said, in less than half a day. Well, I put out an episode 2 weeks ago on this very theme. And then I won't say who it was, but one of the instigators or organizers from within NATO got in touch immediately within the hour and said, well, yeah, we said half a day because we didn't want to bruise the egos too much because they would have rejected it out of hand as being fantasy. But actually, these battalions were wiped out in less than an hour.
I would, which is absolutely credible. And because I mean, I don't want to give the impression that I'm like spending my time sitting on the front line talking, watching the drone operators fly off. I go to the front line not that often, but I mean, I've seen them operate. I've been there, and I talk to these guys a lot. It's really not complicated if the other guy isn't jamming, isn't looking up at the sky, doesn't have any short range air defense weapons, and clusters his vehicles. I mean, it's like, how far do you have to, a drone can cover like 5 kilometers in, I don't know, 10 minutes, right?
Like a turkey
And if
shoot, I think is the
right, it's
phrase, isn't
yeah,
it?
fish in a barrel is, and it's pretty simple. You fly up, and these guys have years and years and years of practice. So if they want to drop a little like a FAW explosive, I don't know, a beanbag or whatever it was they were doing. It's not like they're gonna miss if the target's just sitting still. So it's just a simple question of like hobby piloting almost. I mean, okay, fly your drone to there and drop something. And the thing is that basic activity is taking place in a context of a NATO exercise where supposedly war is being practiced. And, to make the obvious soundbite, it's the wrong war that's being practiced.
Yes, name which one? Second World War or Gulf War, perhaps. But yeah, and a lot of this equipment, I assume, is very high end, quite expensive, that's being wiped out. Is there a certain hubris which comes with, they'll look at these pieces of kit there and, the quotes range from about sort of 1,500 up to about sort of 5, 10, 15,000, depending on how exquisite your drone is, etc. The cost of the mission, the cost of the equipment is almost like a rounding error compared to some of these NATO platforms. Does some of that complacence and hubris come from people getting distracted by, the cost of things?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can say that definitively because one of the interesting aspects of this war is that the enemy really is very, very, very visible. I mean, Russia has an internet. The government can't control it really particularly well at all. The Russian units themselves, they communicate with each other. There's plenty of complaining. There are prisoners of war. And so the picture that we have of how the Russian military viewed its capacities at the outset of the war, I mean, I've talked to prisoners of war myself, and they seem to think about their equipment the same way that, how do I put this, large Anglo-Saxon English-speaking militaries sometimes tend to think about their equipment. It's so good, it's so exquisite. We keep it in such good condition. We are so excellent at maintaining it and operating it that obviously in a war, we're going to run over anything that's put in our path. Well, no, not. Uh, you don't become a better soldier just because you have a really expensive piece of kit. Not necessarily. And if somebody comes up with a good way of blowing up that piece of kit efficiently, then you not only do you have a problem, you have to overcome this false belief that you have that what your brilliant piece of kit is capable of doing isn't even close to capable of doing. And I mean, when in the early days of the war, you could see. I mean, you could see like not columns, but you could like go out to the highway, the Zhytomyr highway outside of Kiev, and find trashed Russian tanks, T-72 BVs, really excellent vehicles, thermals, the rest of it. And some of them had been blown up by a javelin. Some of them had been blown up by an RPG. Some of them, like they just like driven up on an anti-tank mine that somebody had plopped on the highway. Track gone, crew abandons it, tank is dead, and it's really, I mean, I've been studying this for most of my professional life, but it's really, I mean, heck, when I was in Georgia, I saw the same thing. These the Georgians just abandoned a lot of their very high-end kit because, well, they didn't want to fight the Russian army. And it's like it's a lesson that, it's not just the equipment. Equipment helps, but you got to have like a way of using it that beats the other guy. And beating the other guy, it's a war. Beating the other guy usually is killing him, and if not killing him, then forcing him to decide that he better quit because otherwise he's going to be killed. It's really very basic. And
Ben Hodges' phrase there, war is a test of will and logistics, and there you're talking to this will, which of course Ukrainians
yeah,
have, or at least there's a
well, they got no,
threshold number of Ukrainians who are,
they
you know,
they have no choice. I mean, you talk to the Ukrainians, and you. I mean, when the when the maybe I'm getting off the subject, so bring me back if I'm going too far off on a tangent. But you're being British, probably, I would hope it's sort of at least partially relevant that over the winter there was a very substantial Russian effort to demolish the Ukrainian power grid and heating network, and the Ukrainians held up. They basically, they did not, their morale did not crack. They were not mass demonstrations. The emergency services did their job. The air defense people actually, they did their job quite well. And there were all manner of references to the Battle of Britain, the stiff upper lip, the just let's carry on, and how the Ukrainians were unique, like the British were during the London Blitz.
very
And
conscious reference. Yeah, I was there
yeah,
for a
yeah,
week during the coldest week, and people would often ask questions
so,
about,
but if you live among the Ukrainians, they complain, they bitch and moan, they're irritated, they want their lives to go on, but the focus of the anger and frustration, it's obvious, it's the Russians. And the very old lesson that it's very difficult to bombard a population into submission. I mean, I mean, you can look back in the history over and over and over. We see it. We saw it again in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians were not unique or special, or I mean, there are among them some amazing heroes, but by and large, it's just bog standard average people stuck in a situation where really there's no alternative but to resist, and they're going to resist. And the problem for uh, militaries where war is an option, where it's not forced on them, is that they don't have that kind of motivation, and they don't understand what it's like to have an antagonist who is motivated that way. And for NATO, that's a real problem, I would say, because if looking at it from here, there is no perception of the kind of will that you need in order to fight effectively, and how, if the other side calculates, and this is a major error, this is one of the biggest errors of the entire war, if the other side calculates that those guys don't have the will to fight, then then you get wars started that go of badly very, very quickly, and for both sides, it's bad news.
the fall of
One,
France is a good one in World War Two.
yeah,
On paper, I think people forget that France actually had more exquisite equipment, more equipment overall, and actually more men under arms than the invading army. So technically, um, that shouldn't have happened at all. They should have been able to resist, well, completely, if not a lot longer than happened in reality.
hmm and from the Ukrainian perspective, looking at the NATO militaries. readiness to confront the threat, readiness to take warfighting seriously, that's a concern. It's a worry. That doesn't if you look at the Ukrainian media, talk to the Ukrainian talking heads, they'll list, they'll say that they know in Europe, okay, the Poles, they're pretty damn serious, excuse my language, the Poles, they're pretty damn serious. They are not joking around. They are going to have the biggest army in Europe next to the Ukrainians, maybe the Russians, if you consider them European, in about 5 years. I mean,
which I
they're
do
going
not,
to,
but
well, you're going to, they're going to dwarf the Germans, which is like, for those of us who like history, that's like, wow, the Polish army is going to be bigger than the German army. But anyway, um, and the Baltic states, absolutely. But does France really perceive the threat to Europe the way that France should to make Europe secure? From a Ukrainian perspective, and they understand France is, its own country with a long tradition of sovereignty, and France tends to see Europe in terms of France. So looking to the eastern frontier of Europe is not necessarily something that anybody here would expect of the French. But if the point is deterring Russia, and there's a piece of that deterrent force, the French, who maybe are not as committed to really seriously being ready to fight, then for the Ukrainians, that's a concern. And they see it. I mean, they understand, sure, the French have made a lot of commitments and or they have helped out the Ukrainians substantially, but France is a democracy. And the question always is, okay, next election, how much of this present relatively Ukraine supportive policy is going to continue? And the Ukrainians have to make their own calculations. And looking at the British, it's the same thing. The respect uh, for British military institutions is higher, I think, than probably any other military on earth in Ukraine. I mean, that's like the apex is really considered the British, and pretty much every single uh, metric that you would have of military capacity, with the exception of scale. But they'll say, yeah, the British, they have a very, very effective military, but it's small and it's far away.
uh,
How and it, how much is that going to deter Russia? Because the Ukrainians are not going to think in terms of oh, I don't know, securing the North Sea. They don't care about that. They want the Russians to stay on the Russian side of the border. What facilitates that, the Ukrainians think is useful to them, and what is irrelevant to them is irrelevant to them. So, it's for NATO to, or the NATO states to become serious about fighting a war against Russia in terms of being becoming combat capable enough on all levels so that Russia is deterred. That it's a question in Ukraine, and the degree to which, to bring it right back to the beginning, the degree to which NATO militaries are taking drones seriously is like a terrific indicator.
and this may be a tangent. Do tell me if you're not so sort of happy with this direction. But you've mentioned a couple of things which I think ladder up to something very interesting. Whereas you say, Ukraine, people have had war thrust on them. They've had to innovate to survive. But they have an element, I think, which we in Western countries lack. They have a certain immunity to the virus of Russian propaganda and psychological propaganda. Not everyone. We know that there's this concept of konservy and jduny, as Ukrainians say. Those are people who really are either waiting for Russia to take over or don't care one way or the other. But there are enough, there's a threshold number of Ukrainians who can sense Russia narratives, these narratives that seek to divide and conquer. You mentioned the fact that the energy war over winter wasn't just to physically attrit the Ukrainians, not just to take the lights out, but I think Russia was trying to provoke some kind of hostility between people and government. So there's always this psychological element. And that comes into what you mentioned about Will, it comes into what you mentioned about Europe. Now, we may be starting to wake up in the sense of some form of rearmament. But are we really grappling with the idea of Russian psychological operations? And indeed, when they do launch, I say not if, but when they do launch an assault on Europe, it may not come in the traditional sense of vast armies sweeping across the continent. We doubt they have the vehicles or the manpower for that. It may be far more insidious, which is using drones to bring down our economy, using psychological warfare, and let's say the stuff that Putin actually is quite good at, which is the spy stuff, to actually help unseat governments, cause revolutions and coups that install pro-Moscow regimes around Europe, turn it into a divided mosaic, which then becomes easier. And you can even then perhaps use countries to take each other out. I mean, this all sounds absolutely wild, but it's absolutely the core of the Russian playbook for the last couple of centuries.
Yeah, and it's from the Ukrainian perspective, it's not theoretical at all. It is happening right now. It's been going on for a while, and the evidence of it is just overwhelming. Uh, there are so many examples, let's say. All right, so if you look at, for instance, the trajectory of the Hungarian government and certainly, and the Orban regime, and how civil liberties have been undermined, how an oligarch class is taking control, and how the government there and the leadership there has staked out a very hostile to Ukraine and supportive to Russian position consistently over time is for the Ukrainians proof positive that somehow the Russians are achieving geopolitical results in Europe and they are dividing Europe, and it's not theoretical. And for the Ukrainians, is it because Orban is a paid Russian spy? Is it because Putin and Orban have agreed that there's a lot of mutual interest? Is it because there's a lot of Russian money in important industries in Hungary? Is it spies having dirt on critical people within not just Hungary, but within the European institutions, which supposedly would try and limit the degree to which the Hungarian government has undermined civil liberties and things that supposedly the European Union and the European community guarantees. For the Ukrainians, they'll say probably the Russians are doing all of the above, but exactly how they're doing it isn't nearly as important as the fact that they clearly are doing it. These things would not be happening were Hungary simply, I don't know, in South America. It's happening because of Hungary's location. And the Ukrainians will say, and the reason that we know this is because we have seen the Russians do this in our country forever. I mean, as long as Ukraine has existed, and even if you want to go back into the history, during those times when Ukraine didn't exist and it was part of the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire, there has been a concerted Russian policy to undermine Ukrainian sovereignty, such as it is. Now, from the Russian perspective, of course, maybe Ukraine doesn't need to be sovereign. Maybe Ukraine isn't a separate ethnicity and a separate and shouldn't be a separate state. I personally disagree with that, but certainly there are uh, people within Russia who are influential who have that point of view. But the point is that the Ukrainians have been seeing this for not just every Ukrainian's life, but all their history that they study in their schools. So if they look at it and they see the behavior of Russia towards what they perceive to be their country right now, and then they look over in Europe, they're going to see everything through that prism. And frankly, there's a lot of match. The way that there's resistance in, let's say, Estonia and in the Baltic states towards reduction of use of the Russian language is from the Ukrainian perspective. It's obvious what's going on is that the Russian government, through indirect means, is promoting resistance to attempts by these Baltic states to create a sovereignty that's different from Russia. And everywhere that the Russians are capable of doing it, then the risk exists from the Ukrainian perspective. So if the Ukrainians look at, let's say, the AFP in Germany, they're going to wonder, okay, sure, maybe it's just sort of all these stereotypes that we have about, the Germans and German arrogance and all those things from the 19th century that maybe are gone, but maybe they're not. We don't know, but the AFP is there. And maybe there's the Russians helping them somehow. I mean, the Ukrainians will always say, well, we're not sure, but we certainly see where the interests match.
Absolutely, I would say the same about Farage's pop-up populist party, even though many members of that are nominally pro-Ukraine. One has to wonder about the core policies they will actually implement, in whose favor those will be. So the last question here, and this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I hope to get the chance to repeat it. I come back to drones just to sort of top out the conversation. So there are people in the Middle East, there are people all over the world thinking, okay, we can acquire Ukrainian drones. If they're
Well, that's a
thinking
great
about it
question. Yeah.
yeah, if they're thinking about it in terms of a production line, then it seems to me they've got it completely wrong because it's clearly an ecosystem, it's a culture, it's a mindset. That's how Ukrainians have described it to me. I mean, what are the implications for that? What are the commercial implications for Ukraine? Because if you can't just buy a bit of kit and then stick it on the shelf, someone else said that drones have the lifespan of milk.
Like milk, yeah.
Yeah, you can't just stick it in the fridge and there we go, ready to go. So there are some profound implications to this, actually.
Well, to take the money and Ukrainian development aspect first. Yeah, I know. I've talked to developers, and they've got, I don't know, petrodollar signs in their eyes now. They are just they can't wait to start pumping out thousands and thousands of drones. I just read yesterday, apparently Aramco has made a big order, or is talking about a big order, or there are rumors. I'm not fully clear exactly, but I mean, Aramco's got a lot of money, obviously, and these Ukrainian businesses, they're small. I mean, they start out in a garage, and the big ones are sort of like warehouse size. So scaling up, I mean, it's just a question of people and parts and soldering irons that they can scale up pretty easily. It's a pretty technically competent workforce here. But although they're all happy to sell, please buy our drones, and that would help development here because some development does require funding. Um, and you probably know this yourself, but for your viewers, probably the best way to understand exactly how much Ukrainian drones in the Middle East would be a silver bullet is to take a look exactly of what the Ukrainians do to get one of their interceptor drones into a position to blow up a ingressing Shahed Russian drone by ramming it. What happens is that first the Ukraine intelligence will detect that the Russians are moving equipment and vehicles to known launch sites, and probably some of this information is coming from allied governments. So it's generally believed the French, the Americans off and on, but satellite intelligence will just perceive motion and activity at these known launch locations. It's not a big jump that the Ukrainians have people on the ground, spies that are observing this as well. And at a certain point, the launches take place. There are any number of air radars that can watch these things flying. Some actually in NATO, the Ukrainians have their own. So once the aircraft are like up and they launch from West Russia, they launch from Crimea, they'll be able to understand in a general sense where these things are heading, but they can't track them constantly. And the Russians, of course, don't want to have their ingress routes anticipated. So sometimes they don't fly straight. Sometimes they zig here, they zag there. And so for the Ukrainians, the key task is keeping track of these drones, and the Russians can launch like on daily, they launch 100 of these things. A big strike is 400 to 500, and they have launched close to 1,000 in a night. How do you keep track of it? Well, the Ukrainians have all sorts of ways. They have their own air surveillance radars. They have their own ground radars. They have a network of ground sensors, is what they call them. Well, what they really are mobile phones up on telephone poles and everywhere else. thousands of them that are networked together, and their microphones are on, and they have programmed all of this so that they can hear the approaching sound of a Shahed, and based on the volume, determine, using triangulation, where a particular aircraft is and where it is heading. Added to that, there is an entire network of civil defense people, starting with, this usual people like the police and the National Guard, who uh, are on rooftops with binoculars, to civilians who just happen to see a Shahed flying over their village, and they call it in to the authorities. And of course, just like in the Battle of Britain, there are grandmothers, and that their thing is every night that there's a Shahed raid, they get up out of their beds, they go out to their garden with binoculars and a mobile phone, and every time a Shahed goes over, they call the police. And this information is fused at not one place. There are different sectors, which so the fusion centers don't just sort of magically appear. They get developed based on the routes on average used by the Russians, and there are about five. Then the Ukrainians have to start maneuvering intercept assets, which can range from fighters with air-to-air missiles to helicopter gunships to crop duster planes with guys in the back with shotguns or automatic rifles to guys on the ground in pickup trucks and heavy machine guns, sort of, technicals like in the Middle East, to interceptor drones. And is a decision-making network that happen. These drones are moving fast at like 100 kilometers an hour, 150 kilometers an hour, and there's hundreds of them. The Air Defense Command has to decide what asset to get into the probable path of what Shahed in order to shoot it down. And the Ukrainians don't have an abundance of assets, so they're constantly making a decision about what threat is worth what expensive asset. And a certain about 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 2 of the Shaheds that do get shot down apparently get shot down because the Air Defense Command manages to place drone teams with interceptor drones in the path of an ingressing drone. And not every intercept works, so it's a question of how many do you have available based on how many drones are coming in. And all of this takes place over the course of about 6 hours in a night. And this ecosystem, as you call it, didn't just sort of appear overnight. It's the result of years of practice and iteration and trial and error. And the Ukrainians say, if we give you our drones, well, you're not getting our grandmothers with binoculars, right? You're not, and this, so if you don't transplant the ecosystem, sure, the drone could shoot down the Shahed that's incoming in Qatar or Kuwait or whatever, but unless you are maneuvering the assets so that you get the interceptor drone in the right place at the right time, well, you got a nice interceptor drone on the shelf, and a Ukrainian manufacturers made some money, and some of that money is going to go to development. So great. But
But
it's not. This is not just me. The Ukrainian president has said the
yeah,
same thing. Says, guys, great, please buy our drones, but it's
you
not
got to
just
you
the
got to buy
drones.
the counter EW. I almost think it like a
Oh,
printer
I
in the
forgot that.
ink.
I
There's
forgot that
DW
completely.
as well.
There's they have mobile EW. I just like out of my head.
Mm,
There's mobile EW assets. There's fixed EW assets. Is the drone flying in a direction where we don't have to move EW because it seems to be heading towards a place where we have EW, if you will, waiting in ambush?
yeah.
How are you going to replicate that in the Middle East? Well, sure, it's possible. I mean, it's not like, the Kuwaitis or Qataris are less intelligent than the Ukrainians, not at all. But, overnight, while there's a war going on, while the Iranians are actively trying to overcome the network, yeah, you're behind the eight ball. You're, working at a disadvantage.
That's it. And I've been told this is an imperfect analogy, but I think it was a bit like the printer and the ink. They think they're buying the printer, not realizing that actually the bulk of the lifetime commitment financially and materially is going to be to get the ink to make the thing run. And this is, I guess, the role of the iterations of software, iterations of hardware, and EW. We're going to have to cut it off there. Just we're going to go down another fascinating kind of rabbit hole there, but let's save that for the next conversation. Stefan, it's been a huge pleasure. I want to quickly remind people, Siege of Mariupol, definitely should check that out. And of course, your prolific and very insightful work for the Kyiv Post. Massively grateful to have you on the channel.
Jonathan, I had a great time. Hope I can come again sometime.